Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This hour, the province is giving an update on the wildfire situation in BC. We'll bring you there live. Our legislative reporter, Mira Baines, will be with us as well. After 12:30, it is graduation season and parties are underway. What are your plans for the grad in your life? And what are your own graduation memories? I'm Michelle Eliot on radio and live streaming. This is BC Today. Right now, Forest Minister Bruce Ralston and Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma are addressing the current wildfire activity in our province. Let's go there live now.
Just the last 24 hours. Since April 1st, 2023, 433 wildfires have burned a total of 762,000 hectares. The 20-year average for this time of year is 306 wildfires and 18,000 hectares. So the 20-year average is down here, and this season is way up there. The vast majority of these hectares have burned within the northeast region of the province, where we continue to respond to our largest incidents. As we see more climate events and forest fires, I want to start by acknowledging all the people who are being impacted. It's extremely difficult living day to day with smoke or near a fire or being on an evacuation alert or order. On behalf of all British Columbians, let me say thank you to the firefighters, first responders, emergency management teams, highway crews, and communities who are working to keep people safe. The BC Wildfire Service is working around the clock to suppress fires, reduce impacts on communities, and share up-to-date information with you, the public. As we look forward at the days ahead, parts of British Columbia will experience rain and cooler temperatures. While this incoming weather will help short-term firefighting efforts in some areas, people need to continue to take precautions and be prepared. Given the longer-term impacts of drought in British Columbia, it will not take long for any of these forests that receive rain to dry out once again. Though this incoming weather is a welcome reprieve, some regions will not receive any rain, including the northeast corner of the province. There are more than 1,300 personnel directly engaged in wildfire response efforts across the province today. Let me express my appreciation to the BC Wildfire Service and other personnel dedicated to responding to the threats posed by wildfires. Ahead of this year, we made critical investments, the largest in the history of our province, to strengthen wildfire preparedness and response. Most importantly, we moved the BC Wildfire Service to year-round operations to boost fire preparedness and planning. This year, BC Wildfire Service hired over 100 new permanent staff and brought on 330 new recruits for fighting fires. We've invested in new structure protection units, drones, camp infrastructure, and mass water delivery systems to help to assist with putting out fires. And we doubled the annual funding for wildfire prevention programs. Even with scaled-up investments and programs, we have had a difficult fire season to date, and we may well have a difficult summer. In British Columbia, wildfire and emergency spending is statutory. That means we can spend what we need to spend to fight fires and keep people safe. Given recent history and knowing that climate change will result in more impactful fires, we will also keep working to increase prevention and preparedness efforts here in British Columbia. We can all do our part to help firefighting efforts. I encourage everyone to fire smart their home and property. This can be as simple as cleaning your gutter, mowing your lawn, or making sure anything combustible is stored at least 10 meters away from your house. There are many great tips in the Fire Smart Homeowner's Guide available through the Fire Smart BC website. Please continue to monitor government directives, prohibitions in your region. British Columbia is big, vast, and ecologically very diverse. Decisions regarding prohibitions will be made based on current and anticipated conditions in your region. Currently, open burning, including campfires, is prohibited across much of the province. You can find more information about prohibitions on the BC Wildfire website or mobile app. The website and the mobile app are also excellent sources for up-to-date information on the locations and details of all active wildfires in British Columbia. You can also report a wildfire by using the app or by calling 555, that's 4 times in a row, from a cell phone. Let me now pass it over to Minister Mull. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Ralston, and good afternoon, everyone. I, too, am honored to be here on the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. As you've heard, we have seen an early start to the wildfire season, and it is already impacting communities right across the province. Over 2,750 people are under an evacuation order in the Peace River Regional District, the District of Tumbler Ridge, and the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. I know that this is an incredibly challenging time. I want to assure you that wildfire service and emergency management personnel are working hard to keep you and your community safe. Emergency support services are available to those who have been evacuated and require assistance, including accommodation, food, transportation, and incidentals. I want to thank all of the volunteers on the ground who are administering these emergency support services. Please know you must be registered with the Emergency Support Services Program to receive emergency support services. I also want to remind everyone across the province that it is now possible for you to pre-register with emergency support services online using the evacuee registration and assistance tool. This can be found at ess.gov.bc.ca. You do not have to be at risk of an imminent evacuation in order to pre-register. Any British Columbian can pre-register for emergency support services now. Pre-registration means that if you are evacuated from your home, you will be processed at a reception center more quickly and able to access emergency support services right away. Again, individuals and families can now pre-register at ess.gov.bc.ca. I recognize this is also a difficult time for people and businesses impacted by Highway 4, the Highway 4 closure due to the Cameron Lake Bluffs wildfire. The daily scheduled convoys carrying essential goods continues. Trucks are getting through, and we're focused on reopening the highway as soon as it is safe to do so. We are continuing to work closely with impacted local communities, the tourism industry, and other industries. The challenges we are facing here in BC due to wildfires are sadly not unique to our province, and we continue to coordinate with the federal government as well. As we move further into the wildfire season, I urge people to stay informed and be prepared. While our government is making sure that supports and resources are in place for the upcoming wildfire season, it is equally important that people start putting together a plan. Like I said last week, now is the time to prepare yourselves, your family, your home, and your community for any potential fires. Follow all fire bans and avoid activity that may result in a wildfire. Whether you live near an active wildfire or not, I encourage every British Columbian to take 20 minutes out of their day to put together an emergency plan, including packing a grab-and-go kit so that you are prepared to leave immediately if you are required to evacuate. The province, First Nations, and local authorities will continue to be there to assist families and individuals who need accommodation and assistance. If you are evacuated and find it more suitable to stay with family and friends, you are still eligible to receive emergency support services if you require assistance to help with costs relating to billeting, food, and incidentals. Make sure that you register with emergency support services to receive these supports. My ministry continues to work closely with First Nations, local authorities, and other partners to identify communities and venues that can support evacuees in the event of a large-scale evacuation. During emergencies, the province amplifies all evacuation alerts and orders issued by communities on emergencyinfobc.ca and on the Emergency Info BC Twitter account. The province may also issue broadcast intrusive alerts for evacuations on behalf of communities. It is incredibly important that British Columbians are aware of these sources of information before an emergency takes place. Lastly, as a reminder, if you are placed under an evacuation order, you must evacuate immediately. Your local authority or First Nation will provide information on evacuation routes and reception centers for you to go to. I know that leaving the place that you love and call home during an emergency is difficult, but by staying behind, you are putting yourselves and others in danger. I want to reiterate the importance of being prepared by taking steps to be prepared and knowing where to find emergency information. By doing so, we can all gain a sense of control, a sense of safety, and peace of mind. PreparedBC.ca has excellent resources available in multiple languages to get you started. So let's continue to look forward to all of the joy that summer brings while recognizing the potentially challenging situations ahead. Stay calm, be alert, and be prepared. And with that, I'll pass the microphone back to Minister Ralston. I'll take all these away, sorry.
Great, thanks very much. We're now going to call upon the three experts from the various ministries. I think Chris was first.
I think they're just there for questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. If media have questions, please press *1 to enter the queue. You'll have the opportunity to ask a question and a follow-up. As alluded to by the Minister, we do also have subject matter experts on the line prepared to answer your questions. Our first question for today will go to Richard Zussman, Global News. Okay. We're going to move on to Wolf Deppner, Black Press.
Is that Morse code? Or?
Hello?
Hi, is that Wolf?
Yes, it is.
Wolf, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. To the issue of resources, I know the province has been in touch with the federal government about resources here. The federal government has talked to other jurisdictions around the world to get more firefighters to come to Canada. Can you update the public on where those efforts stand? I know the European Union is sending over firefighters to Quebec. What, if any, additional resources can BC expect to receive in the coming days and weeks?
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question, and we will not run out of personnel. There are a number of arrangements, both at the national level, as you mentioned, and internationally to provide mutual assistance. So when British Columbia needs support, we know we can count on it. I'll turn that over to, I think it's Ian, who can give further detail on that. And if not, it's Chris.
We're going to actually, I see Ian is spotlit there. Can we please actually begin with Cliff Chapman of the BC Wildfire Service?
Thank you very much for your question. This is something that we manage as fire agencies across Canada. And we're all part of the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire community, and we use that agency called CBC to put in requests for resource support from generally some other jurisdictions in Canada. Obviously, this year and this spring has been unique in that there aren't very many resources available in Canada as the hazard and the fire season has started early with what's going on and has gone on in Alberta. And obviously, Quebec and Ontario have started to see fires, as well as Saskatchewan and the territories. So the request through 60 has now gone international. We have had supports come into Canada from Australia, from Mexico, the European Union, as you referenced, and we have put holds in with CBC that we will be looking for, or potentially looking for, support over the course of the next 3 weeks. At this time in BC, we have enough resource capacity to manage the fires that are on the landscape, as well as be prepared for potential new ignitions from lightning-caused fires. But we have put in requests to support our agency and support this province really for the next 3-4 weeks so that we have the ability to rest our own staff who have been going since the middle of April. And we are going to see some of that start to come into BC as early as this weekend. We may see some staff come in from the United States, which will be great to be able to give some of our staff some rest and recovery and have them available for July. We've also been in conversations about potentially looking at firefighting resources from other agencies, including agencies like Mexico, the United States, the European Union. It's really almost call it an international partnership where we are really trying to work collectively across the globe to support and surge to agencies that need it. At this time, BC is not at the forefront of one of those agencies, but we are putting in requests in advance of when we believe we will need the resources so that we can effectively plan for the summer ahead.
Wolf, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Let's talk about money. At this stage, how much additional money does the province sort of estimate will be needed to help deal with this fire situation? Obviously, the situation is evolving. No one has a crystal ball looking into what the situation is going to be in July and August. But what sort of ballpark figure are we talking about here in terms of additional resources needed to potentially respond to, as the minister said, a very challenging fire season?
Before I turn it over to Cliff, let me just say that, as I said in my comments, spending on wildfires is statutory. There's no need to go back to any of the Treasury Board processes. The money is available when it's needed, and so that is not a concern. In terms of a specific estimate of how much we're likely to spend this season, I think that would be hard to estimate, but I'll let Cliff make any additional comments that he might want to.
Thank you, Minister Ralston, and I agree with exactly what you said. It's very difficult to forecast what the fire season will look like in July and August. Obviously, when we did our briefing last week, we talked about the potential of a very challenging fire season. I'd say the one thing we could do is look in the past at 2017, 2018, 2021, and look at the numbers that came out of years like that. And I don't have them in front of me, but as a ballpark estimate, it was roughly $500 million in direct response recovery costs associated with those fire seasons, and slightly up from there depending on which of those 3 years. So certainly we can get those numbers to the media after this call, but that's I guess a reference point. But again, until we know the conditions of July, August, September, how long our fire season will go, it's very difficult to forecast those numbers. We do make efforts to do so. But it is an inherently, it's very inherently quite expensive when we start to bring in resources from other agencies, when we have as much rotary wing aircraft and air tanker aircraft that we already have in this province. I believe we're up to just under 80 helicopters that are on contract for BC Wildfire Service right now. We have a fleet of just under 30 fixed wing air tanker aircraft and bird dog aircraft. So, we have a lot of capacity on the ground right now and in the air right now. And so looking back at 2021, 17, and 18 would give us a good starting point about the potential costs of a season if it continues on the trajectory that we've been on so far this spring.
Our next question comes from Richard Zussman, Global News. Richard, please go ahead.
To the ministers, I know we keep hearing reference to 17, 18, and 21, the years the province declared state of emergencies. Is the preparation here that BC is preparing itself to call a state of emergency, and at what point does that get determined, considering that we can't predict what's going to unfold over the next few weeks and months?
Turn that question over to my colleague, Minister Ma.
Thank you very much for that question. So to be clear, the Wildfire Act includes quite substantial tools to enable province to respond to wildfire situations, including the deployment of resources, the spending of money, and so forth. However, we are constantly evaluating the situation and trying to project the trends that we're seeing on the ground. If there are circumstances where we may need to access emergency provisions of the Emergency Program Act, then a provincial state of emergency could be called. Some of those emergency provisions might include orders to restrict movement in certain areas of the province. It could involve the establishment or the commandeering of supply chains. It could also include price fixing of commodities. These are extraordinary powers that we don't throw around lightly. The decision to declare a provincial state of emergency is a very serious one. It is something that we are constantly monitoring and taking a look at as things roll out throughout the season.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
This is BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, live streaming as well on cbc.ca/BC and on YouTube. You've been listening to Emergency Management Minister Bowen Ma, Forest Minister Bruce Ralston, as well as Cliff Chapman from the BC Wildfire Service, giving an update on the current wildfire situation in our province. Minister Ma there saying at the last second there that they're closely monitoring as to whether to call an emergency situation in BC. I'm joined now by our legislative reporter, Mira Baines, to discuss what we've just heard. Hi, Mira.
Hi.
So we touched on, from Bruce Ralston there, he touched a little bit on funding and the cost of fighting wildfires this year in BC. What do we know about that?
Well, he said that there are enough resources. There is enough money out there. They won't be having to go back to the Treasury Board in order to get some of the approvals for that money. But this is set to be one of the costliest wildfire seasons already. It's on pace, and that's where the trajectory seems to be leading us. Right now, the budget is about $204 million for the entire year. And so far, British Columbia has burned through about $100 million. So we've already gone through half of it, and we still have the rest of June and July and August to go through. And that's a year-round budget, right? And so in 2022, just to give you some perspective, the budget was $199 million. And that fire year wasn't as bad as this season, as we're already seeing. The costs just 2 weeks into June are well ahead of the trajectory. Generally, if we take a look back to 2017 and 2018, and those were very costly wildfire seasons, the province spent about $649 million and $615 million, respectively. So just in terms of the spending, you can just imagine where we're going right now.
And so early in the season as well. We heard a little bit about resources and what that funding would go to. So what are the resources that the province is dedicating to wildfires?
Sure. So Forest Minister Bruce Ralston was updating reporters and media just about that money, as we just heard. And he said that about 100 personnel, wildfire permanent staff year-round have been hired. Also, 300 new recruits have been hired. So there's money going to that, as well as doubling the amount of funding that's going towards fire prevention around the province and climate readiness. So there has been money spent, but I think one of the questions is, has that been enough?
Okay. And, one of the comments that we heard from the Emergency Management Minister, Bowen Ma, is be prepared. So what are things people need to know? Let's perhaps remind them of where they need to go online, where that information can be.
That's right. I think one of the things that she said, and she made it a point to say this, that people can register for emergency support services online. And that's very important to know. And she said that what people can also do is pre-register. Right? Even if they're not under any threat of a wildfire, it's important that they pre-register. That way they're prepared when things do happen. And she outlined some of the things that people should be aware of in terms of getting emergency alerts from their cell phones, as well as making sure that they have a grab-and-go kit. Just in case they are under threat. So these are big concerns. And she did reiterate the point that that if you are under evacuation order to leave, and we've seen people going back to their homes in the Tumbler Ridge area already.
Yes, we have. Yeah, she made that point pretty adamantly
That's
at
right.
the end there. Let's remind people, we'll put those websites up on our screens as well if you're watching us on the live stream, preparedbc.ca and emergencyinfobc.ca as well. Pardon me, emergencyinfobc.gov.bc.ca. And you can also pre-register at ess.gov.bc.ca. We'll throw those up on screen for you as well. Mira, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's CBC's legislative reporter, Mira Baines. We'll continue to monitor that news conference as well for any more details that we need to bring to you later on in this program. It is 1:31 in the Mountain Time Zone. You're with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming as well. You can catch us online, cbc.ca/BC, as well as on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page and on the CBC Gem app. Welcome to you. Thanks so much for joining us. And it is 12:31 now, 1:31 in the Mountain Time Zone. Time for a CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC is expanding the program it uses to help patients kick their dependence on opioids. The province will now provide universal coverage for eligible drugs, which include methadone. A sentencing hearing is underway for the Vancouver police officer who assaulted a black man 5 years ago in the downtown core. Constable Jared Sadu was convicted earlier this year of assault with a weapon after tasering Jameel Moore Williams 3 times after he was stopped on Granville Street. Sadu apologized in court this morning, saying he couldn't find adequate words to express his remorse. And as we've been hearing on the show, the provincial government says 86 wildfires are burning in BC, with 13 detected in the last 24 hours. Since April 1st, there have been 433 fires that have burned 762,000 hectares. And now taking a look at the forecast on the north coast, mainly sunny this afternoon with a high of 14. Highs reaching 19 with widespread smoke and a bit of sunshine in the Peace. In the central interior, a mix of sun and cloud with local smoke and a high of 21. Highs from 12 to 17 with a chance of showers and thunderstorms in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, a chance of showers with a high of 20 degrees. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria and the Fraser Valley, clearing this afternoon with highs around 19. I'll have more local news at the top of the hour. Now back to Michelle with BC Today.
Rob, thank you very much. And still going on that news conference with the Forest Minister and Climate Preparedness Minister, Climate Readiness Minister, still giving more updates on the wildfires. We'll continue to monitor that throughout the day. Thanks very much.
You bet.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. It is 12:33 now, 1:33 in the Mountain Time Zone. And just to reiterate again, those websites for you, preparedbc.ca, ess.gov.bc.ca. That is the evacuee registration and assistance website, and emergencyinfobc.gov.bc.ca. This is BC Today here on CBC. You can catch us online as well as CBC Radio 1. You can listen on CBC's Listen app and watch us on our YouTube page, that's CBC Vancouver, also on our website, cbc.ca/BC, and you can use the CBC Gem app as well. You can catch us on so many places. Well, right now, we're going to go to a story in Kelowna that is getting a lot of attention online. This is a story where an elementary school track meet turned into a battle over gender identity. A 9-year-old girl was about to compete in the shot put event, but as she was preparing to throw, a man in the stands allegedly heckled her. According to the child's mother, the man accused the girl of being transgender and said that she should be disqualified. This happened last Thursday at a school track meet at the Apple Bowl in Kelowna. Now, in a statement to Kelowna news outlet Castanet, the man accused in the incident has denied yelling at the girl and her parents. Kelowna RCMP is investigating the incident. The story has gone viral on the internet, and it comes as new fronts for anti-LGBTQ messaging have opened up across Canada and the U.S., with schools, drag performances, and gender-affirming care providers becoming targets of harassment and threats. We are talking about protecting rights right now, asking you today, how should school districts address anti-trans rhetoric? And what protections are needed to keep kids safe from anti-trans incidents? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also send an email to bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining me now is Wayne Broughton, who's a trustee on the Board of Education of Central Okanagan Public Schools, an advocate as well for trans kids. And he joins me now from Kelowna. Good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us. What was your reaction to the details that have come out from this track and field incident?
I was, of course, appalled, both as a school trustee, because this was a school district event, and as a parent. And just imagining how this must have felt for the parents and the kids who were there. I know that the child who was the target of this incident was traumatized, was crying. They had to move the shot put event to a different location and to try to get away from the individual. So it was definitely a very difficult event for everybody. And apparently terrible things were shouted to the parents as well, accusing them of criminal things, really.
As a school board trustee, just in the broader landscape, what sort of rhetoric are you seeing?
We've been seeing a lot of this, and it's been increasing. You mentioned just now about incidents occurring in the United States. I think they're a year or two ahead of what's happening here, but we're seeing it growing here as well. There's a lot of rhetoric being distributed by national organizations. We have literature that's being handed out outside of our schools to parents. We have people coming to our public board meetings who then will try to speak at the board meeting, expressing their views about what's happening in the schools, often highly misinformed. But their concerns about the SOGI resources, that's sexual orientation, gender identity resources that are available in schools. And then there's other sources online and elsewhere, like big name influencers who are promoting this sort of rhetoric as well, and reaching a lot of people with it.
Okay, and I should say as well, when we say accused, that would be the tone of the statement, the alleged statement in this story. When it comes to misinformation, how do you think it's shared, and what impact does it have?
It's being shared in the sorts of ways I've just described, and a lot of it's behind the scenes as well. So there are rumors being spread around. And part of the point is to try to influence people who normally wouldn't necessarily pay a lot of attention to these sorts of things. And they start hearing rumors about what's happening in schools or about transgender treatment or these sorts of things. And they start to be concerned. And that's the point. And one of the results is the sort of thing that we saw occurring at this track meet is individuals who are emboldened to start speaking out about things that are based on false information, misinformation. And unfortunately, for some individuals, this could even turn more violent. And besides violence, it also ultimately, a big concern of mine is that it could even start affecting us legislatively. I mean, again, we look to the United States and we can see there that there's anti-trans bills and things coming out. So it's, if we let this continue, it's just going to get worse.
And so what is the role for a school board then?
The school district, the staff, and the school board are responsible for trying to make sure schools are safe, inclusive for everyone, and that we're providing role models as well for diversity and inclusion in our schools. Using, for instance, respectful language and inclusive language in the ways that we speak to students, and we don't assume stereotypes, or we speak out against stereotypes that are being used, and also making sure that resources are available that are inclusive in the schools as well, books and so on. Okay,
that's interesting too. What conversations, when I speak to my kids about it, it just seems to be second nature to use proper language and respectful language. What are the conversations that are needed among kids and teachers as well?
Well, you mentioned your own kids seem to have it as second nature, and we've seen that as well with our kids and their friends and other kids that we've met. It's really a big shift in culture in terms of how kids perceive this. If they find out somebody uses different pronouns, most of the time they just switch to the new pronouns and they're not bothered by it. And that's really what we'd like to see. It's more often, unfortunately, the adults in the kids' lives or maybe kids that come from different homes that teach different things, who are bringing some of this anti-trans messaging in.
My guest is Wayne Broughton, a trustee on the Board of Education at Central Okanagan Public Schools, an advocate for trans kids. He's joining me from Kelowna. And we are asking you as well, how should school districts address rising anti-trans rhetoric? And what are the protections that are needed to keep kids safe from anti-trans incidents? You can give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. If you'd like to give us an email, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. And Wayne, you talked a little bit about resources. How has that grown over recent years?
Well, I mentioned the word SOGI earlier. So
Yes.
there is this SOGI 123 program, which part of that includes resources that are available to schools, books and other sorts of resources to allow teachers and staff to have the opportunity to be able to be more inclusive in their classrooms. None of it is like a mandated curriculum or anything like that, but these are resources that are available, and some teachers certainly take advantage of them. And I know from what I've heard from kids and others and parents that it's often very helpful to have this, to be able to see, for kids that are gender diverse or maybe have a different sexual orientation, to be able to see themselves reflected in their school resources, to hear about the family that has two moms or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And or to see the child that has, a different gender identity in one of their books. But in addition for providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for those kids, this is also an important educational opportunity for everybody, for all kids to realize, hey, not everybody's the same. There is diversity out there. This is what it can look like. And I think that goes a long way towards what you had said about how kids these days are a lot more naturally inclusive because of this. So I think there's a lot of great stuff happening in our schools. We have diversity clubs where kids can join if they want and feel welcome and safe and know that they can be themselves there. Because it's not always safe everywhere, even in schools, right? There's always bullying and things that still occur. And so, it's good for them to have that sort of safe space.
That's an important point. And in light of that, what advice would you have for people who want to be allies in those moments?
So if they're, for instance, I guess in schools or even at home, listen to the kids, listen to what they're saying to you, be open and receptive to what they're saying. So often some of this rhetoric is that kids are being influenced or indoctrinated, but they're really not. They're just being told that they can be themselves, and then we need to listen to them and listen to what they say. And then in terms of other actions, speak out. When bad things are happening or when you're hearing misinformation, speak out against it and oppose it. There needs to be some more messaging out there, like your show right now, for instance, that's telling people a lot of what you're hearing is false. People talk about sexualizing children at schools, indoctrinating children, sex activists. This is all nonsense. It's false. This is not what's happening in our schools. Just because we have inclusive resources available and inclusive language, and we put some pride flags up on the walls, that's not indoctrinating anybody, and that's not in any sense sexualizing anyone. So it's, we need to speak out against this.
It's really good to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.
All the best. That's Wayne Broughton. He's a trustee on the Board of Education of Central Okanagan Public Schools and an advocate for trans kids. Now, in the past month alone, there has been a rash of pride-related hate crimes around BC that police are now investigating. In Nanaimo, the theme of this year's parade was Pride is Protest. CBC's Claire Palmer was there over the weekend, and she spoke to participants.
And that's what people are doing today, is really showing that it's okay, because that's what pride means, is to show people it's okay.
People here today say pride is needed now more than ever.
Queer people, like queer and trans people, need to see themselves like needs representation so they can see themselves in other people, know that it's okay. They can live how they want to, like whatever makes them happy.
The mood is celebratory, but some pride societies are still feeling an undercurrent of hate. In Nanaimo, organizers had to work to come up with security plans to keep people safe.
It's not safe. It's not safe for us to exist. And so this Pride, we really wanted people to think more carefully about raising the rainbow flag and see it as more of a call to action than just a celebration, because we need to be creating safer spaces for LGBTQ2IA plus community members everywhere.
According to Stats Canada, there was 64% increase in hate crimes in 2021 related to the community compared to the year before. It's something politicians are acutely aware of.
So my responsibility as a community rep is to make sure everybody is safe and free to love who they love, to be able to express themselves how they want. And that's what this day is all about. We're shoulder to shoulder, standing up together.
Organizers are heartened to see the passion and positive responses to the festivities.
The volunteers hardly have any work because everyone's just contributing and coming together and supporting each other and working together. It's really beautiful to see.
Pride Month will continue for the rest of June. Celebrations will be happening across Canada through the summer, with Vancouver hosting Pride events in August. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Thanks very much to Claire Palmer for that story. And back to our top story now as well, the wildfire update from the province today. And again, the websites that you need to know about, preparedbc.ca and emergencyinfobc.gov.bc.ca for the latest on wildfires and wildfire preparation. And on wildfire, seniors at Tumbler Ridge Secondary are worried about what will happen to their graduation ceremony, given the current evacuation orders. Savannah Gulick and her mother, Roxanne, spoke with Stephen Quinn on CBC's The Early Edition this morning.
Fortunately, we have a lot of people who have family coming in from out of town, including me. I have a sister who came all the way from Scotland yesterday to see our grad, because our grad's supposed to be on Friday. So that's one of the big worries, is there's a bunch of people coming into town because they booked flights they can't cancel. Yeah.
And so everything is just on hold now, as far as you know. Is it at all possible that the evacuation order could be lifted and people could get back to town for Friday?
Well, even if we get back to town for Friday, our principal postponed our grad.
I understand your sister graduated in 2020, and of course you wouldn't have had a ceremony because of COVID. You were hoping that all of that was behind us, obviously.
A funny story, actually, because in grade 6, my older sister complained about not having a grade 6 graduation because of teacher strikes, but I didn't have one either because of floods.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, so then she didn't have a grade 12 graduation because of COVID. So I was pretty mad at her because I was like, no, I don't have one because of wildfires.
So floods, wildfires, and pandemics have kept everybody from graduation ceremonies in your family.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, Savannah and her family did evacuate to Fort St. John, but she says her classmates are scattered as far as Chetwynd, Dawson Creek, and even Grand Prairie, Alberta. Now, while there is uncertainty around that grad event, let's hope they are able to make some memories. That is what graduation is about, right? Making memories. They are kicking off around the province. We're asking you in this part of the program, what are your plans for your own grad in your life? And what about you? What are your favorite graduation memories? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. Sharon Bonner is a party planner and founder of Bright Ideas Events Agency. She joins me now. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am fine. You know, it's interesting to hear all the interruptions to those grad ceremonies. I imagine people are really wanting to get going this year then.
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of funny. I heard on the previous segment that the Tumbler Ridge is affecting the Grand Prairie area, and that's where I am right now.
Yes, that's right. How are you doing over there?
Very bad. My eyes are watering. Inside the house, it smells like smoke. Not good. Very scary. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. As we try to talk about something uplifting and joyful here, we're all affected, right, by the climate emergency and wildfires around our province and in Alberta as well.
Yes, absolutely. But graduation is a really positive time, and I got to thinking about what graduation meant to me and what it'll mean to others that are graduating. And it's almost like you have the keys to your future. So I hope that even though you might not be able to get the type of graduation party you're hoping for, that you still will have that mindset to think about this being like a step forward into the future of your life. And your life the possibilities are endless. So don't put all the stock on the fact that the party wasn't great or you didn't have a party, because you can still celebrate inside. Sure.
What a wonderful sentiment that is, Sharon, and certainly something to keep in mind this year, as in previous years as well. What do you think makes for a memorable graduation, despite the circumstances?
Well, memories, creating memories. At least a lot of the events that I've planned, they included a lot of Polaroid photos, memory books, people writing in your yearbook. I actually went back to my yearbook and was looking at it. And because of the segment, and people wrote all sorts of things, and I said I wanted to be an actress or a physical therapist, and so those memories from my classmates in 1978. I mean, that's eons ago, but those were memorable for me today as I look back in history. So I'm hoping that people, when they're planning their graduation celebration, include that bit of personalized touch, customization, somewhere where they can get their family and friends to leave a note or snap a Polaroid or create a message wall that they can take a picture of or be part of. Because I think that the personal touch is what really matters at graduation parties.
That's so great. You know what stands out for me when I look back at my graduation is what I wore. I think a lot of people think of that, right? The dress, and I remember having one made. It really has a special place in my heart, and was probably one of the first times I ever really dressed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I dug out my graduation picture to look at it for this interview, I couldn't believe I had a bouquet of peach roses. I totally forgot about that. But what I do remember is my boyfriend and I got up on the stage and we sang the grad song. And that was something that was terrifying, exhilarating, and really memorable. But I just remember I couldn't wait to get that over with because I was so nervous about performing in front of my class.
Oh my goodness, how did you do?
We did awesome. We sang Seals and Crofts, We May Never Pass This Way Again.
Oh, I'm glad I'm bringing up all these memories for you. Love that you look back at your yearbook. Sharon Bonner is with me, a party planner with Bright Ideas Events Agency, and asking you, what are your plans for the grad in your life this year? And what are your own favorite graduation memories as well? Our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. If you want to email us, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. And Sharon, there are often the ceremonies and the proms, right? But sometimes people have smaller parties as well. My daughter went to a pizza party for one of her friends a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and they're having a lot of celebrating in the family, like their sibling, their daughter, their son is graduating. They're creating a family around that individual. And again, it brings it back to my previous comment, is make it all about the individual that's graduating, personalize the centerpieces, put their favorite foods, their favorite drinks, make the event be about them, and take lots of pictures, write lots of notes, and even go so far as to ask them, what is their favorite color? Then put a world map on and give people pins, and people can put pins on the map that say, this is where I want to travel, or this is where I'm going to live, or this is where I'm going to school, and you can look at the map, and everybody, for an example, my favorite color is purple. So wherever I put the purple pins would be where I traveled or where I plan to go, and that would be good networking and icebreaker as well too. So I'm really a big fan about visual communication and visual interaction at events. So I think with the personal touch.
That's really, really cool. I was going to ask you what's on your list of must-haves for a grad event. That sounds like it to me.
Yeah, and also food and beverage are must-haves.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And things that are super popular are kind of do-it-your-own bars. Like I made a note of a chip and dip buffet I've done, or a root beer float or float bar, mocktail bar. The kids really love to kind of make what they want to eat, and so let them do that. Don't make them eat what you give them. Let them create their own foods, sensations, and let them enjoy themselves. That's what I would suggest.
Right, because this is about that next step, right? To becoming an adult. So let them make their choices. What is it like for parents, I wonder?
Oh, probably sad, terrifying, happy. And I think it's time to let go and let your graduate make their own decisions and also have an opinion. Because the whole life you were guiding them and showing them, make good judgments, good morals and values, but now they're stepping into their own. And so this graduation is a party for them to shine and to say, this is who I am, Mom and Dad. And this is what I want to be, and this is where I want my journey to take me. And I think the parents need to embrace that, as hard as it might be, and be very supportive. And I think being supportive is showing the kind of party for your graduate that they want.
Yeah.
And really supporting that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And for grads, you touched on how this is really about the next phase of their lives. What should they keep in mind so they get the most out of that moment?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think not really diarizing it, but capturing that in photographs, in memories. I think just like when I got married, I almost forget about my whole wedding day because I was just a blur. Thank goodness for videos of pictures. But that's what happens to the graduate. They're so excited. They've got their friends and their family around. And then a week later, they're like, what was that party really like? So I would recommend the parents to videotape, to take photos, to really put some effort into documenting the day for the graduate so they can look back and they can really enjoy it in the future and with their kids too.
And finally, Sharon, cost. How can people keep costs under, not to extend themselves too far?
Yeah, nowadays things are very costly. Food prices at events have gone up 30%. So wow. I would say really for the people planning a graduation party, do it yourself. Get as much volunteer help as you can. Talk to somebody like me who has the experience and give you some guidance. But I really feel the key to keeping the budget low is to do a lot of things yourself, a lot of do-it-yourself projects. Be creative in your food so you don't have to get it catered. Buy your own mocktail stuff and make some mocktails. And lots of information on the internet these days. Lots of information. But I mean, just employ the professional as myself to give you some guidance and some ideas. And then you can run with it yourself to keep the cost down.
So wonderful to speak with you. Thank you for sharing your own memories with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really lovely to go back in time.
And do take care over in Grand Prairie, okay?
Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sharon Bonner is a party planner and founder of Bright Ideas Events Agency. That is it for our show today, and we'll have much more for you on the wildfire update from the province today as well. As we heard, 423 wildfires since April 1st. That is above the average of about 300, and more than 2,700 people have been on evacuation order. Much more on that throughout the day here on CBC. I'm Michelle Eliot. Thank you for joining us on radio on live stream. I hope you have a great afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow.